And over time, I think I was doing the math, and when I was going through my application to become a permanent legal resident, I had upwards of like 22 licenses. I don't think any of you guys will ever have more than 3 or 4 in your lifetime. But just looking through my stuff, I had approximately 22 of them. And I still have them. I still hold them as a memory of, that path, right, that I had to go through. And to this day, my parents and my brother still go through it. TPS is still ongoing, and it's 20. I don't know how many years now, since 1998, 25 years or so, or thereabout. So they're still going through that process. Thankfully, I met a lovely lady while I was working here, and I was able to get married, and I think she will be joining us, and our son will be joining us at some point during this presentation. And so I was able to adjust my status at that point to become a permanent legal resident, or what we call the green card holder, right? Very often referred to as green card. But in order to even go through that process, for me, it was approximately close to $12,000 in order to obtain that. And in order to obtain that, we had to submit an application to USCIS of close to 600 pages, in which I had to convince the government that my marriage was legitimate, and things that they asked us were, well, who sleeps on what side of the bed, and how many windows does your bedroom have, and can you tell us about any marks on your wife that nobody else will know about? Can you tell us about your finances? Can you tell us about what's her maiden name? Who are her folks? Who was her first boyfriend? I mean, things that you wouldn't imagine for some things, obviously. And so it was a very delicate process, and one that was difficult to navigate, and one that if you don't have the appropriate guidance as a lawyer, it's difficult to navigate on your own. And even now, I've been I think I received my first green card, which is a probationary green card. You have to reapply to get your permanent 10-year one, because then you have to apply 10 years later. I don't know if you've gone through that process, but because of the delays that USCIS is experiencing, I still haven't gotten my 10-year card. And that was submitted, and I paid, however many thousands of dollars, like 3 or 4 years ago. And yet, whenever I travel, I still don't have a document. I have to present a letter that the government has given me in order for me to exit and enter the country. Mind you, all this again, picture going through that process and not having what I would consider a stable, secure job. I was fortunate enough to have worked at the university after I graduated. I worked as an academic coordinator with Upward Bound, which is a college access program. I was also the associate director or assistant director of ISA, International or Intercultural Student Affairs, before I transitioned to being a soccer director. And so, very arduous process, I would say, in order to obtain a little card that says that I am accepted in this country as a legal person. So yeah.
Thank you so much, Marco. Yeah, so those of us who were born into citizenship privilege, just by the dumb luck of having been born here, often don't know just how difficult this process is that folks have to go through. Again, even when they do it the right, quote unquote, right way, right? So we're going to skip down to a question in terms of thinking about how immigrants are represented in the media. And before we kind of dive into this question, we are going to watch a short clip. So as they pull the clip up, I'll read the question to kind of get you thinking about it, and then we'll watch the short clip. So when you see immigrants represented in the media, what do you feel is missing from the picture? What information would help U.S. citizens to better understand the experience of being an immigrant? and we're going to watch this to kind of get us thinking about it.
I can't believe that you're being so what is the word? Selfish, pig-headed.
Really?
Her words, not mine. Do you know how frustrating it is to have to translate everything in my head before I say it? To have people laugh in my face because I'm struggling to find the words? You should try talking in my shoes from 1 mile.
I think you meant...
I know what I meant to mean. Do you even know how smart I am in Spanish? Of course you don't. For once, it would be nice to speak to someone in my own language, in my own home.
Okay, so keeping that in mind, would y'all be willing to share a little bit about what you would like to see represented better in the media in terms of the immigrant experience and what American citizens don't understand about that? Whoever wants.
Sure. I will have to say probably the fact that, well, this is the country and the land of opportunities, as we hear outside of the walls of the United States. So, of course, you have this in mind, and you think, okay, obviously, so everybody's coming with that because they will have more opportunities. Yes, in my case, yes, there was more opportunities for my family, for my mom here, who was a single parent, but most of us have to pack our bags because we're basically forced to do that because there is not another option in our country. So when we have to pack our bags full of dreams and then we come here, as you see people walking the border or coming through pathways like we do, there's always a reason, the why behind it. And also, there's a lot of misconception about the pathways in immigration because everybody feels like even my mother-in-law one time asked me, like, why don't everybody just go and apply and complete the application you did? She didn't even know. I have to walk her through my whole process. And my whole process, as you can see, is not exactly the same as my two friends here. So there's that misconception, the misconception of that everybody who's walking into this country is uneducated and they don't have anything to offer to the country. So I think that's the mindset that we need to try to change because we can bring so much to the table. We can bring and share, our culture, our roots, and then make sure that we can bring so much, and I just think about, like, in my case, in my opportunity, like if I would have stayed behind in Colombia, I probably wouldn't have had as many opportunities that I have had here. But then again, my pathway has been very rough because in a way I have to prove myself of who I am. Because a lot of the times I'm judged maybe because of my accent, and they sometimes write you off. And I'm going to give you little examples, specifically when I moved here to Boone and I got married with my husband. When we were going to get married, he called one of his best friends, and his first question was like, well, are you sure she's marrying you because she loves you or because you're going to give her the green card? When I was already a resident of the United States at that point. And also when I was going to go ahead and look for a house that we wanted to rent, I would call a place and ask for an appointment. And they would say, well, we already rented the house. And I would ask my husband to call, and he will call and he will get that appointment. So it's little things like that, that it's like we need to work extra hard to prove who we are. When all I ask is for you to give me an opportunity to show you how capable I am and what I can offer you to this country. So there's many examples. Anywhere where you go, we will encounter that. We can even encounter this in our own countries. But I feel there's a lot of misconception in the news about who is walking in and putting all of us in a box of we're going to take advantage of it, or we're going to go ahead and just come here and just take your jobs, or all these things that you hear that aggravates me severely.
Andres, would you like to add anything to that in terms of thinking about media representation and perceptions of immigrants?
Yeah, I think I want to reiterate what I said before, and it's how different each immigrant's pathway is and has been. Also, not just because of the process that we have been going through as immigrants, but also because of our cultural background, our individual differences, right? It's very common to hear and to see situations in which all of the people, all of the immigrants that come from South and Central America were grouped together as if we had exactly the same culture, and we're very, very different. I mean, each country, and even not even in different countries, but even in our own country, right? We come from, both of us from Colombia. Every region, every social group is different. So each person has and brings their own culture, their own background, their own experiences, and I think we cannot put in the same box. We have many different experiences. And I would like to also to emphasize something that Yolanda mentioned before, and it's that we bring a lot of things to share with the country. We don't come here to like extract from the country. I think it's more what we can bring and share with the country. And in my case, with as I mentioned before, I fell in love with North Carolina, and when I came here, I was like, I want to contribute to this society, to this culture, to this state. And I think immigration and being an immigrant, it's a superpower rather than a hindrance. I think not just because we really prove ourselves and how bad we want to be here, right? By going through all these challenges, I mean, it would have been easier to stay back home, probably for a lot of us. For some people, they were really forced to leave their countries and their places. But it's really, I think, in terms of also of work ethic, right? If we are here, it's because we want to work hard, and because we want to show and demonstrate that we can bring something, and we can enrich the culture and the society and the communities that we interact with.
That's great, Andres. Thank you so much. And excellent segue to the next question that I was hoping to skip down to, which is to think specifically about unique strengths that people who grew up in other countries bring to their workplaces here in the U.S. And so you talked about work ethic, and that being one thing that's really important. Anything that Marco or Yolanda would add to that, specific unique strengths that immigrants bring into their workplace?
I would probably say just diversity of thought, right? The way we approach problems is not always the same as people do here. So I think that's something that is sometimes undervalued when you have that within a diverse workplace. You can achieve successful results approaching them from different ways, right? You don't always have to do things a certain way, and I think to me that's a strength that people coming from different backgrounds and different countries and cultures are capable of providing, right, within the work environment. So the diversity of thought, and like the other panelists were saying, I think, and I said this earlier too. I think when you're an immigrant, you work extra hard to, again, fight some of those negative perceptions that are portrayed in the media, or, somebody had one poor experience and they lump all experiences or all people that are from outside that community into that experience, and it's just not true. I was fortunate enough that when I was growing up in Honduras, I went to a bilingual school. So when I came to the U.S., I didn't really have to adapt too much in the language from a language standpoint. I was still put in ESL. I don't know if that's still referred to as ESL these days, but English second. Is it the same?
It changes all the time.
It changes. Okay. I don't know what it's. I don't know what the
ML, multilingual.
Yeah, I don't know what it's what the acronym is today, but me being a kid, when I came to school, I was told that I had to take a language, and I said, well, great, I'll just take Spanish, because I already know Spanish. And they're like, doesn't work that way. You got to take German or French. And so, you know, it was a great opportunity for me to learn something new. So I became trilingual. I majored in French when I came to college here, and so you know, it led to some good stuff. But yeah, even then, like I was saying, I think even as a student, growing up, I don't know if people would know the school, but I went to Broughton High School in Raleigh. I was oftentimes the only person of color in my AP classes, or IB. I don't know if IB even exists anymore, International Baccalaureate programs. And oftentimes that school is a very affluent, primarily white Caucasian community. And so I always had to prove myself and to prove to my peers and to my teachers, I'm just as smart as the person next to me, regardless of my skin color or my background, or whatever other differences you may find between us. So yeah.
Great, thank you so much.
I just want to add really quick about what else can we bring is also to bring our culture inside of the work environment. I feel like most of the times I feel like we need to kind of blend in and try not to show our Colombian enthusiasm or this and that, what is appropriate or not. So I had a phase in my life that it was trying to really blend in, and I realized that I was starting to lose who I was. And I don't know if that this will have happened to you before, but it's the saying of I'm not from there and I'm not from here. When I go to Colombia and I start talking to people in Colombia and people who doesn't know me, and they're ask me, so where are you from? And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm losing my accent when I speak Spanish in Colombia, that they cannot recognize that I'm actually from Bogota, and obviously I'm here and you can hear my accent, so obviously I am from another country, right? So it's just that confusion, not only in your mind, but in your heart, because you go there and you don't belong there anymore, and you're here and you're still not completely, even though I'm a citizen, I'm still I have the blessing to be, I have the dual citizenship, because Colombia allows you to keep that citizenship. So, but it's very hard. So it's changing that mindset that from I'm not from here, I'm not from there, to I am from here and I am from there. Having those two roots, to those two cultures, to keep them alive and just be proud and be thankful for that. So I'll make sure that when I'm at work, I celebrate everything that I can. I bring the arepas and try to culturalize them into the Colombian flavors. So I think that's one of the things that highlights.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Yolanda, for sharing. So we're running really low on time, so we're going to close with one question as sort of a takeaway, hopefully, for everyone. And I'll just ask each panelist to answer this briefly, maybe a sentence or two. What is something that employers and coworkers can do to foster an immigrant-inclusive workplace? What's something that would be helpful to immigrants to see in the workplace? Marco, would you like to start for us?
Yeah, I would say in my experience, or at least in my professional experience, asking directly. I think when you are genuine, it comes across as it. Sometimes, we're all ignorant when it comes to knowing how other cultures work, right? And if we don't ask, if we make assumptions, sometimes we put our foot in our mouth. And so ask. There's nothing wrong with asking. I think, again, if you're genuine in learning and trying to be inclusive, in the environment that you find yourself in, and do want to learn about this other person, ask. I think that'll come across, and I think that's, sometimes it may be a bit nerve-wracking, because you don't want to sound dumb or offensive. But yeah, to me at least, having grown up, ask. I think it's one of the easiest ways that you can create that inclusive environment within a workplace.
Thank you. Andres, would you?
Yeah, no, I had the same thought about showing curiosity and interest in the people who come from a different place. And remember that those who are here, who immigrated to this country, they left everything behind. They left their families, they left their cultures, they left their languages, they left their food, right? So remember that when you interact with any immigrant, regardless of their legal status, I think that's secondary. And something that I want to add very briefly is when we were planning to come here, we had different options: stay in Colombia, going to another country, and coming here. And we decided to come here for different reasons. But one very strong reason was that as an immigrant, you can become an American citizen, not in terms of, again, legal aspect of the citizenship, but you can really become part of the society. If you go and immigrate to almost any other country in the world, even though you have all the rights of a citizen, immigrants never really become part of that country, and at least you in the first generation. So I think that's key of this country, is how it at the end really absorbs and integrates immigrants into the culture.
That idea of the melting pot, right? Yeah, thank you.
For me, it will be get to know us. Don't feel afraid to ask us questions. We're proud of who we are and our culture and our roots. So I love it when they come and ask me, like, hey, how do you make your tortillas? And I will say, well, I don't know how to make tortillas, but I can tell you how to make arepas. So it's little things like that. Like, we will take no offense, because of course, again, sometimes we're all put like in this box and they think Central America and Latin America, the whole thing is the same thing. So I will definitely never take offense of that. And also help us to celebrate, and don't forget to invite us to the table, because we can bring a lot. I feel like a lot of the times we're not included in the leadership role, and you're missing out on that, because we can bring so much that because of our own experience and testimonies that we have. We know who we serve, so we can bring that to the table. So just make sure that get to know us and invite us and listen.
That's great. Thank you so much. Wonderful note to end on. We're technically out of time. I don't know if we can still open up the floor for maybe a question or two from the audience. I did know Amelia had her hand up at one point. Did you have something you wanted to ask or share? You forgot. Okay, no worries. Anybody else have a burning question that you'd like to ask our wonderful panelists here before we go eat some delicious food? Yes. Great question. I'm just going to repeat the question really quick. The question was access to health care during their time of becoming a U.S. citizen. What does that look like?
So I can speak like when I was here as a tourist, I had no access during the whole year. But when I came back as a resident, actually talking about resources, I had no idea about all the resources that were available until I got pregnant with my first son, and I was living in Florida. And funny enough, nobody told me that I could have applied like for Medicaid in that case, because I have a very low income at that point. So I have to actually pay every OB visit cash until actually I moved here to Boone. Boone is an amazing community, I just have to say, with so many resources and people eager to help. So that's when they, and I was pregnant with my second son at that time, and they said, oh, you can apply for Medicaid. And I was like, oh, what is that? I had no idea. So that was a great resource. And funny enough, I went through all my care to the health department, our local health department. And after that, when I had my son, they went into like a home visit, because they offered that, and they actually offered me a job. So that was my first job in Boone. I worked at the health department for 5 years, working with the Latino community. It was amazing.
That's actually where we met, which is really cool. Anything you want to add?
So I came as a student at first, so I had access to healthcare through NC State, but my wife and my daughter didn't have access to that same health insurance. My wife couldn't work. I was a full-time student, so our income was very low. So basically, my wife had to be here for 5 years without her health insurance, basically paying cash for anything that was happening to her. And when my daughter was born, because she is an American citizen, she had the right to receive Medicare or Medicaid. But it was very surprising when I first came here. I lived in France after I went to college, and healthcare in France is free for everyone, right? And I never thought about healthcare before I came here when I was considering coming here for my PhD, and I just assumed, well, it's the biggest economy in the world. They should have fantastic healthcare. And then it was very, very shocking when I came here as a student. I received the quotes for the health insurance for my wife. It was impossible for us to pay. It was basically half the rent for the year. So it was beyond our means at that time. So it's a challenge. It's a challenge. Actually, my wife still pays for her healthcare in Colombia just in case something serious happens. We can go back because we have fantastic. The quality of healthcare in Colombia is very good if you can afford it. So we still pay for that just in case something something serious happens to us.
Perhaps a topic for another panel, right?
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
Healthcare is definitely something in the U.S. that we think a lot about that people in other countries don't have to worry about. This is the only country where you have to worry about GoFundMes to be able to pay for your healthcare. Anyway, another panel. Marco, anything you'd add to that? No? Okay. Any other burning questions? Awesome. Well, I would just like to thank everyone who's here. It's really awesome to see this great turnout, and especially would love to thank our panelists for making the time to be here and share their experiences with us. It really is very meaningful, and like I said before, for those of us who have citizenship privilege, it's just so important to take the time to listen and learn. So thank you for sharing. Yeah.
I'd like to add my thank you to the panelists, the moderator, Meredith, Jamie, Jacqueline, DEI committee. A lot of people were involved in putting this together. Fascinating. My head is full of thoughts and ideas. Some of what we see in the problem for migrants is just incompetence, let's say. As a faculty member here at App, I am entitled, I think, to one free class a semester. So they waived tuition for me. And I decided after working here 15 years to take a class. I had to go through the admittance process. I had to be admitted to App to get that benefit, which was a lot of paperwork. They didn't ask how many windows there were in my bedroom. It was a little less intrusive than that. But I had worked here at App at that time 15 years, and I still had to prove that I was an in-state tuition eligible. Some of the common sense things are just unexcusable, but they equally apply to everyone. We had hoped at one point to have a panel of undocumented immigrants, but it was hard to find people that would be willing to come up and say, I'm not documented, I'm here illegally. So maybe someday, maybe a future panel, we could do that. This final comment about health care as well. I was born and raised in Brazil, where the health care is of very low quality, but it is free for everyone. I've talked to faculty members that took a job in the U.S., came here, a colleague went to have a baby and learned that, wow, she couldn't just have the baby. There were all these other things that had to be done beforehand to get it covered. So it really helps us, I think, as a nation to understand how things are done elsewhere, to give us ideas about what we might want to do in our country. I love the comment about the melting pot, and I think that's very true about the U.S. People come to the U.S. and they're put in this big pot, and it stirs us all, and we're all Americans. I worked for a couple of years in Canada, which has a different approach to health care, as an aside. But their picture of the Canadian population was a mosaic, where every piece had a different color, a different shade, and you got a beautiful picture from the mosaic. So what you use as your kind of analogy for what the country is affects maybe your attitude toward how you incorporate others. And we are really very, very honored to have you guys share your stories with us. We all leave here better informed than we did before, so let me add my thank you to everyone. I'm supposed to remind students to swipe their card if you're here and you want it known that you were here. I am also supposed to invite you to stay for the reception. So participants have the opportunity for conversations with the panelists. So if you had a burning question, or even if you didn't, there are tables assigned, one for each panelist. Just sit at the same table with them once you grab some food out front, and you can continue the conversation and learn more from them. The reception is catered by, now a word from our sponsors. No, they're not really our sponsors, but reception is catered by La Monaca. And if you enjoy the tamales tonight, be sure to visit their restaurant on 421 between West King Street and the 105 bypass. So that's and we have every year we have a shared reading. We still have a few copies of the one about immigration, the notes from an undocumented citizen. Apparently there is a QR code that you can scan and figure out how you can get a free copy. We'll have another book coming for next year as well soon, and we will provide copies to help people be up to speed on what the next panel will do. It'll probably be something to do with Native Americans and the obstacles they face. Thank you once again for being here. Meredith, what have I forgotten? And thank you for being here. You guys make it happen. So thank you very much. Good night.